So we've all heard of people using rinseless wash and then storing it in the bucket for weeks on end to reuse it again. But you never actually see them use it again. So today, we're gonna do just that. We've got Absolute and ONR after 2+ weeks in the bucket. Let's see if they perform just the same as day one. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Jump right into it. I've got a bucket of ONR and a bucket of Absolute right here that I used 2+ weeks ago that you guys seen me do a comparison with. I left them in the bucket just as they sit, because you hear about people using rinseless wash all the time after letting it sit in the bucket for a few weeks. We're gonna go ahead and do just that. We're actually gonna do it on camera today to see if I feel it's still usable and if it still performs just the same. I just did a quick comparison test. I didn't even finish washing the car that day. So no, there's no dirt probably in the bottom of these buckets that I can see. We're still gonna use the same things. The bottles are still the same. They've been hanging on the shelf the whole time. And we are also gonna go ahead, use the same mitts. They've been washed. So we'll go ahead and put those in. Let's see if it mixes back up. All right, let's start with Absolute. As you can see, there's a lot of chunkiness in here. I'm gonna remove it. Let's go ahead and put you back on the stand. Let's see if it mixes back up. Not gonna do it with a mitt. Flip the grit guard up here. Now I've heard people say they don't like Absolute being stored in a bucket because it gets chunky like it does, which it's been forewarned that it does get chunky. But as you can see, looks good. I see a little bit of a little something there floating around in the water, but I don't feel like it won't perform, but we'll find out. ONR, everybody pretty much knows that it's been proven to work in a bucket, but still nothing really to mix up anymore. We will pick the grit guard up here. You can see no real chunkiness. It's just cloudy to begin with, but it looks good too. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we're gonna start off with the Absolute. Here, red buckets right here, red mitt, red spray. Let's go ahead and get that put in the bucket. All right, shake this up well. We're gonna do a pre-spray here. Like I said, this car isn't really dirty, it's just more dusty. I had it out yesterday, day before. It was finally nice out. So the way I'm gonna do this, pre-soak the whole car here, because it's not that dirty. Just get it to lift up what little bit's on here. All right, pre-sprayed. Still smelling good. Let's get started. Still slick just like it was when I did the test 2 weeks ago. Feels just the same. Flip it over here. Get the fender. Seems to perform just the same as it did 2 weeks ago, even after sitting in the bucket. Very happy with it so far. Feels good on the window. Understand this is very subjective. Don't just take my word for it. You know, give it a shot if you're still hesitant. I've seen in the comments people saying I don't trust it because it turns a water gray, it separates. At the end of the day, that stuff just is looks. It's how does it perform, and that's what matters to me. And I'm here to tell you, in my environment, 68 degrees in my garage, snowing outside, there's very little moisture in the air, water quality is pretty reasonable. I don't have problems. So, and I believe water quality is probably a huge factor in how a lot of these rinselesses work. Because it seems like everybody that has a different opinion lives in a different part of the country. I live in upstate New York in the Northeast. People that live in Arizona are gonna clearly have something different. They're gonna have totally different water. They're gonna have totally different environment. Unless they have a climate controlled garage like I do. So, yeah. Let's go ahead and wash the back here. I know there's a lot of dust in here. Easy on the black. That's something I do want to point out, is it's very subjective on how these perform, and I've noticed from a protected to an unprotected car. So keep that in mind. So this being unprotected, you may have a different result. Keep in mind, I got nothing on this car, 0. I don't even have a detail spray on it currently. All right, as you can see, I do have drying towels. So I don't need drying towels. These are the gauntlets from the Rag Company. These things are fantastic. Always like to pre-spray them. Just using this, I'm not using any detail sprays or anything. So I always like to get a little bit of a mist on it. And as I expected, and as some people pointed out, yes, a drying towel does a lot better. But yeah, everything's flashed right off, no problems. Go ahead and dry this. Continue drying off, get the roof. Good with it all. I have not found where this does not perform any different than day one myself. None whatsoever. Seems to perform exactly as it did, just as I expected. So anybody that believes just because it doesn't look great in a bucket after 2 weeks doesn't mean it can't be trusted. Give it a shot. That's the way I look at it here. But yeah, flashed off good. Everything's good. I don't see no streaks, no leftovers. All right, let's move over to the other side and try some ONR. Just wanted to let you know, down in the description, I'll leave you everything that I used in this video. And while you're down there, please hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe. I greatly appreciate it so I can keep doing things like this. If not, that's okay. Give me a thumbs down if you think this is horrible and let me know in the comments what you think. Greatly appreciate it. Here we are, ONR, Blue Mitt. Same spray from a few weeks ago. Let's go ahead. I always like to agitate still. Looking good. Shake it up, pre-spray again. We'll go ahead and soak this side down, just like we did the other side with Absolute. You don't have to douse your vehicle in this stuff. I just like to pre-spray just so it lifts the light dust that's on it already. Try to start breaking and emulsifying everything. So, all right. Done with that. Try to keep the water in the bucket here. No different than the other side. Go ahead. I'll start on the hood. Yes, I overlapped a little bit of where I was. Try to get that up off the paint. Move on down here to the fender. See, I'm not finding ONR quite as thick as Absolute still in my environment. And like I said, this is very subjective. Just not finding it quite as, I'm not finding it as slick after a couple of weeks. Is the bucket again? I like it to where it's just getting ready to start dripping. And on the window here, the plastics. Yeah, I'm not finding ONR as slick after a couple of weeks, you know, so it's very interesting because it looked like it was in good shape and it's just, this is not as enjoyable after a few weeks if it's sitting. I wouldn't say it's horrible, but I think if you test them side by side, I think you'll notice. And if you don't, well, like I said, this is all very subjective to water quality, conditions, environment. It's all a part of this. So just because it works in my environment does not mean it's going to work in yours. I'm just doing this so people can see. So it's very rarely, if I ever found a video of anybody actually trying to use Rinseless after 2 weeks, they just talk about it. Left it a little bit more wet this time. See if that helps. And I'm still noticing the same thing. Still not the same. Still cleaning good. And that's never the case is ever questioned is, will it clean? Yeah, I'm not, this is not as pleasurable to me. I'll go ahead and hit this. All right, move on to the back here. Same deal, I already did the trunk lid. Left it a little wetter just to try to help with any kind of lubrication here because I'm not seeing where this performs as good. I don't. Unfortunately, I want to love it and be able to say, yeah, I'll keep it in a bucket, but I don't personally believe I need to be keeping it in the bucket anyways, but if I had to pick one, this definitely isn't it. I'm not as thrilled with it. Let's go ahead and dry. All right, same thing, pre-rinse or pre-soak. Just a couple sprays here, inside and out, so it isn't completely, so I'm not dry dragging my towel. Rinseless, a new gauntlet out of my cabinet, so we're not cross-contaminating. Let's see how it dries and how it feels when drying. Feels good when drying, I will say that. It feels a lot better than it did when I was washing it. It's drying all right. I like the lubrication. It's there on a drying perspective. I don't know why I'm not feeling it when I'm washing. I would say it's very comparable when drying to Absolute after 2 weeks. It's just not drying that great. I've tried to let it flash right there and I still had to hit it real quick. So comparable when drying, not comparable when washing in my environment. That's not, if you're gonna get me to pick, I would not be picking ONR. Seems like as the towel absorbs more, the more dry drag I'm starting to get. It also might be because there's not as much product either as it flashes off, so. Yeah, you can see, just whenever I go across, I gotta try to hold the towel and it's just not impressed at all as I continue on here. As I start losing material on the thing, I guess I could re-soak it back down. But you know, I don't want to have to keep doing extra steps. I just want to get it washed and get it out, get it done. Move on. Not here to try to play with it. Get in, get out. Vinyl stripes dry okay. Just understand there's no protection whatsoever on this thing. If you found a different experience and what you were drying was protected, understand that's going to make a difference. And actually, I will give credit to where credit's due. Somebody did comment that it might make a difference with protection, and I didn't really think of that as being an issue. Everything looks good. I mean, it's clean. No question, it's got cleaning power. The lubrication's it's my problem. It's just not there for me, so. Hood's dry, everything's clean. Let's go ahead, wrap up with our final thoughts. ONR, still good stuff. Holds together, doesn't really separate like Absolute does in the bucket after sitting for 2+ weeks. I didn't find where it was as lubricating as Absolute is. It's kind of disappointing. I probably would have stopped if I wasn't shooting a video and probably went ahead and just continued using Absolute. Once again, it's gonna be very subjective. My environment, my weather conditions, my where I live, water quality, all that's going to be a factor. So just because I say it doesn't seem to work as well after sitting in a bucket versus versus Absolute, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. You know, as far as I'm concerned, test it in your environment if you don't believe it. Tell me your thoughts, leave them down in the comments. So that's my thoughts with ONR. Absolute, as you've seen, it separated, looked really weird. I felt it worked just as good as it did from day one. Once I got it mixed up, I would recommend mixing it up by hand first. Pull the grit guard, mix it up a little bit. As long as you don't have a bunch of dirt in the bottom. If there's that much dirt in the bottom of the bucket, I'm probably gonna dump it out and make a new batch. Stuff's cheap enough. Absolute, still works like day one at ONR. I don't feel it's as lubricating as it was on day one. So both dry relatively well. Seemed like the further I went with ONR, it didn't seem to absorb up in the towel as well. Maybe that was because the product was flashing off as I went because I started where I finished. So by the time I got to the front, it was a little drier. I can understand, I'll take the blame on that. But Absolute didn't let me down. I did the same thing. So totally up to you. Me, I'm going to stick with Absolute. I will continue to probably use ONR as long as I got a fresh bucket. Understand, try it on a protected vehicle. That might make a difference. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I greatly appreciate you tuning in today. Let me know if you like videos like this. Greatly appreciate it. Have a good one.